You told yourself you'd start today, that this time would be different, that you'd finally break the cycle and just do the thing. Wake up early, hit the gym, write that thing you've been putting off for months. Stop scrolling. Stop wasting time. Stop being the version of yourself you don't respect. And for a moment, you believed it. You felt it. That surge of clarity that makes everything seem possible. You even planned it out in your head. You saw the person you'd become if you just stuck with it. But then morning came, and the alarm went off, and your hand reached for the phone before your feet hit the floor. And suddenly, without even deciding, you were back in the loop, watching someone else's highlight reel, consuming someone else's discipline, living someone else's momentum while yours sat untouched in the corner of your mind, collecting dust. And now it's afternoon, or evening, or late at night, and you're sitting there wondering what happened. Again. You had the intention. You had the plan. You even had the motivation for a second. But somewhere between thinking about it and actually doing it, everything fell apart. And the worst part? You can't even pinpoint where it went wrong. It just did. Like it always does. Like it's been doing for weeks, maybe months, maybe longer than you want to admit. So you tell yourself tomorrow will be different, that you'll try harder, that you'll be more disciplined, that you'll finally figure out how to stop sabotaging yourself. But deep down, you already know. Tomorrow will look exactly like today, because you're trying to fix the wrong problem. You think discipline is about willpower, about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do, about grinding through resistance until you break through to the other side. So you wake up and try to strong-arm your way into action. You clench your jaw and tell yourself to just do it. You fight yourself. You push. You force. And for a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, it works. But then the resistance comes back, stronger, heavier, and suddenly you're exhausted from a battle that shouldn't even exist. You're drained from fighting yourself. And you start to wonder if you're just not cut out for this. If maybe discipline is something other people have and you don't. If maybe you're missing some internal switch that makes things easier for them. If maybe you're fundamentally broken in a way that can't be fixed. And that thought sits there, quietly, in the back of your mind, whispering that you're the problem, that you're lazy, that you lack what it takes, that you'll always be the person who starts strong and fades fast. But here's what you're not seeing. Discipline isn't a fight. It's not a war against yourself. It's not about overpowering your resistance or white-knuckling your way through discomfort until you collapse. The real enemy. The problem isn't you. It's the way you've been taught to think about discipline. You've been sold a lie. A story that discipline is about suffering, about sacrifice, about doing things you hate until you love them. And that story has kept you stuck. Because every time you try to be disciplined, you're actually trying to become someone you're not. You're trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit. You're trying to override your natural rhythms and preferences and impulses. And your brain knows it. It feels the disconnect. It senses the fight. And it does what it's designed to do. It protects you from the conflict. It pulls you back toward comfort. It whispers that you can start tomorrow. Because discipline built on force always collapses. Always. You can hold it together for a day, maybe a week, maybe even a month if you're stubborn enough. But eventually, the weight becomes too much. You run out of willpower. You run out of motivation. You run out of reasons to keep fighting yourself. And you fall back into the patterns you've been trying to escape. Not because you're weak, but because you were never supposed to fight in the first place. The real enemy isn't your lack of willpower. It's the belief that discipline has to hurt, that it has to feel hard, that it has to be a constant battle between who you are and who you want to be. The invisible weight. You're carrying something you can't see, a weight that sits on your shoulders every single day. It's not the work itself. It's not the tasks or the goals or the commitments. It's the gap. The gap between what you say you'll do and what you actually do. Between the person you want to be and the person you are when no one's watching. Between the life you imagine and the life you're living. And every time you break a promise to yourself, that gap gets wider. Every time you hit snooze when you said you wouldn't. Every time you scroll when you said you'd work. Every time you choose the easy option when you said you'd choose the hard one. It's not just a small failure, it's a crack in your foundation, a signal to your brain that your words don't mean anything, that your commitments are negotiable, that you can't be trusted, not by others, but more importantly, not by yourself. And that's the weight you're carrying, the accumulation of every broken promise, every abandoned plan, every moment you chose comfort over commitment. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's there, constantly. And it affects everything, the way you see yourself, the way you approach challenges, the way you make decisions. Because deep down, you already know what's going to happen. You're going to start strong and fade. You're going to have good intentions and weak follow-through. What discipline actually is? Discipline isn't about force. It's about alignment. It's not about fighting yourself. It's about building a version of yourself that doesn't need to fight. It's not about willpower. It's about identity. Because when your actions match who you believe you are, there's no resistance. There's no internal battle. There's no war between what you want to do and what you should do. There's just movement. Natural, effortless, inevitable. Think about the things you do without thinking. Brushing your teeth, locking your door, checking your phone. You don't need discipline for those. You don't need motivation. You don't need to force yourself. You just do them because they're part of who you are. That's what real discipline looks like. Not a grind, not a sacrifice, but an expression of identity, a reflection of who you've decided to be. And the moment you see it that way, everything changes. Because now you're not trying to force yourself to do something you don't want to do. You're not trying to become someone you're not. You're just aligning your actions with who you already are, or who you're becoming. And that shift, that tiny reframe, is the difference between discipline that breaks you and discipline that builds you, between a fight you'll lose and a flow you'll sustain, between the person who tries and the person who does. The choice you're not making. Every morning, you're making a choice, but it's not the one you think. It's not about whether you'll work out or stay in bed, whether you'll write or scroll, whether you'll be productive or waste the day. It's about who you're choosing to be, not just today, but in the pattern of your days, in the accumulation of your actions, in the story you're telling yourself about who you are, because every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. And right now, you're voting for someone you don't respect, someone who talks big and acts small, someone who makes plans and breaks them, someone who wants more but does less. And the worst part? You know it. You feel it. That quiet disappointment that sits in your chest every time you choose comfort over commitment. Every time you pick easy over important. Every time you let yourself down. But here's what most people miss. You don't need to change everything. You don't need to overhaul your life or reinvent yourself overnight. You just need to shift the vote. One action at a time, because discipline isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in small, boring, unglamorous moments. The ones where no one's watching. The ones where it doesn't matter. The ones where you could easily choose comfort and no one would know. Those are the moments that define you. Not the big decisions, not the dramatic turning points, but the quiet, everyday choices that either reinforce the person you want to be or erode them. Freedom isn't what you think freedom is doing whatever you want. Sleeping in, skipping the work, taking the easy path. And for a moment it feels like freedom. No pressure, no expectations, no one telling you what to do. But that's not freedom. That's surrender. And the price you pay for it is steep. Because every time you choose comfort, you give away a piece of control, a piece of respect, a piece of power. And over time, those pieces add up, until you wake up one day and realize you're not free at all. You're trapped by habits you can't break, patterns you can't escape, a version of yourself you don't recognize. Real freedom isn't the absence of discipline. It's the result of it. It's the ability to choose, to act, to move toward what matters without hesitation or resistance, to trust yourself, to respect yourself, to be someone you don't have to run from. And the only way to get there is through small, consistent actions that prove to yourself you're capable, that you're reliable, that when you say you'll do something, you do it. Not because someone's watching, but because you decided to be that person. That's freedom. Not the absence of rules, but the presence of integrity. Not the lack of structure, but the strength of self-respect. Not doing whatever you want, but being whoever you choose. The unspoken truth. No one's coming to save you. No one's going to hand you discipline. No book, no video, no mentor, no system is going to do the work for you. They can show you the path, they can give you the tools, but they can't take the steps. That's on you. And it always has been. You've known this. Deep down, beneath all the excuses and justifications and reasons why today isn't the day, you've known that the only thing standing between who you are and who you want to be is the choice to act. And that choice is always available, right now, in this moment. You don't need more information. You don't need more motivation. You don't need the perfect plan or the perfect conditions. You just need to decide. But here's the thing most people don't say. Deciding isn't a feeling. It's not a surge of motivation or a moment of clarity or a rush of inspiration. It's a commitment, a quiet, unglamorous commitment to show up, to do the thing, to keep the promise, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one cares, especially then. Because that's when it matters most. That's when you're building something real, something that lasts, something that becomes who you are. And once you cross that line, once you stop waiting for the feeling and start trusting the commitment, everything shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, undeniably, inevitably. The mirror. Right now, you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Not the one on the wall, the one in your mind, the one that shows you who you really are when no one's looking, when the motivation fades, when the excitement dies, when it's just you and the choice. And that mirror doesn't lie. It shows you the accumulation of every decision you've made, every promise you've kept or broken, every moment you chose comfort or commitment, every vote you cast for who you're becoming. And if you're honest, really honest, you don't like what you see. Not because you're broken, not because you're lazy, but because you know you're capable of more. You know there's a version of yourself that doesn't hesitate, doesn't negotiate, doesn't make excuses. A version that just does the thing. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but consistently, reliably, without drama, without internal wars, without needing a reason beyond the fact that they said they would. That version exists. Not in some distant future, but right now, right here, in the choice you make next, in the action you take when this video ends, in the moment you decide that today is different, not because you feel ready, but because you chose to be. So here's the question. Not the one you ask yourself every night when you promise tomorrow will be different, but the one that actually matters. Who are you going to be when no one's watching?